Let's go now to the Fireside chat sessions. I would like to invite our senior partner, Chetan. This will be on digital enablement leveraging cloud.
Thank you, Vin. Good afternoon. So it's always difficult for a session after lunch. But let me welcome very, very interesting delegates on the next Fireside chat. So we have Mr. Noman Rasheed. Noman is a CIO of Dubai Islamic Bank, one of the oldest and the biggest Islamic bank in the world. And Noman comes with very deep thinking experience. He was previous CIO and head of operations for Noor Bank, and prior to that with Barclays. Yeah, Noman, very warm welcome. Noman and his bank is doing a very interesting first UAE large bank transformation onto public cloud, right? So it'll be very interesting to hear his experience. I'll now invite the second delegate, Ammara Masood. Ammara is president and CEO of NdcTech. NdcTech is one of the leading services company out of Pakistan. And Ammara has, again, a significant experience as a Stanford grad, working in the industry, and she's on a multiple boards, including Depositories Pakistan, Habib University. So very, very warm welcome, Ammara. Yep, so I'll just take a minute to start. So very interesting topic. We all spoke through the day about digital enablement. We had a great session to start with from Sandeep, who is the acting CEO of Abu Dhabi Islamic Bank. And he started the word with saying ABCDE, and C stands for cloud. And then we spoke a lot about digital banking and its innovation. So we are discussing enabling digital and leveraging the cloud. And Noman, it does require a very, very big courage of conviction to move customer applications to the cloud, especially in a banking industry which is highly regulated. So if you can just take us through the thought process and what came as key points before moving a customer application on the cloud, and how was that thinking?
Yeah, so in fact, even before that, the way I look at cloud journey, now I think most of you remember 2002 or 2000, I would say, when AWS launched cloud computing 20 years back. And at that time, it was all about storage, compute power. That's what was available on internet. Now, from there to now, where you have AI models available on internet, you have all blockchain advanced technology available on internet. It's a huge maturity curve which the industry has taken. Now, there are 4 areas of cloud which we look at as banking industry when we decide on cloud journey. One is the regulators, as you rightly mentioned. Now, 20 years back, 15 years back, UK regulators came up with the cloud standards, outsourcing standards. Then Europe followed. Now, last 5 years, if you look at GCC, Bahrain, Saudi, and now UAE is coming into the cloud space, right? So a very nice maturity cycle regulators are going through. Our technology partners, starting from 2002 to now, right? They have also gone through an amazing maturity cycle in terms of capabilities and offerings. So that's the second dimension of cloud. The third one is the technology within the business function. So for us as technology partners of our business functions, in terms of the skill upgrade life cycle, which we have gone through from nowhere to now, the technology departments of banking industry have certified cloud technology sitting there, huge maturity life cycle. The fourth one, which is missing, which I dearly miss, and I wish next year, instead of a CIO sitting here, there will be a chief consumer banking sitting here talking about cloud, or chief corporate head talking about cloud sitting here. I hope that happens, but that's the business. Now, the maturity among business community about cloud, I think we as technologists fail there, because we always position cloud as a technology initiative as opposed to business. So now, coming to our own maturity cycle, I think, yes, customer dynamics, looking at the central bank regulations, how they are approaching cloud, very, very carefully devised strategy which bank has adopted, as well as generally industry has adopted, right? So we can talk more about that, but from approach angle, these are the four dimensions which we look at: partners, technology, regulator, and business.
That's very interesting, Noman. Ammara, just looking at it literally from an opposite side, from a service provider, and what you've seen across Asian subcontinent, Middle East, Africa, how do you see the cloud's role in the way services are being demanded and consumed from a service provider's perspective?
Okay. So I think, first of all, I agree with Noman that the cloud journey started back in the .com days. And at that time, I was in North America. And a lot of e-commerce companies were coming to a head, and they were calling something, it was not called the cloud, but they were coming up to all these technology providers and asking them to set up their business in this black box. And that's how it started. And then, .com crashed, and then cloud was not that prevalent anymore. And then, people were thinking that, cloud only is in the US. How will I get to the cloud if I'm sitting in the GCC? So from technology perspective or the provider's perspective, all of the companies had to think about how they could take the cloud to the various countries, to the various markets, before the consumers would try to use it. And I think that what has accelerated the journey for the cloud, when companies like Oracle, companies like AWS, like Microsoft, they decided that they have to open up new markets for the cloud and not just think of it as being only in 2 or 3 places around the globe. I think the other accelerator, which has also, of course, helped in a big way, and I think there are some statistics regarding that even before COVID, 91% at least of the banking community was thinking about going on the cloud in some fashion or the other. But I think when COVID came, it kind of accelerated that whole journey where banks had no choice but to do that. I think I'll just share a couple of experiences where what we were seeing, especially in the GCC market, is that as the cloud providers were coming into different regions, whether it is Saudi region or Bahrain or UAE, what was happening is that everybody was doing a wait and see of who's going to go first. And the regulator, had to come up with the framework where maybe, payment providers or digital banks would be the first users of the cloud. And what we are seeing is that slowly, the new banks which are opening in these markets are looking at the cloud, whereas the traditional banks who are already present are still very nascent, and they're not, going ahead with some of the use cases that they should be. So it's an interesting evolution, and I think many things will happen in the years to come.
Can I add just one thing to what Ammara said? Is the service providers have also helped regulators improve their understanding of cloud in this region, right? So I have seen the partners which Ammara named in workshops with Central Bank of UAE, right, and walking them through and making them understand all the nitty-gritties of cloud computing. So that's a great contribution from the service providers to the industry by helping the regulators also. So I think I just wanted to add that point.
Well, Noman, that's kind of very, very interesting. You spoke about Europe, Bahrain, and then now UAE and Saudi Arabia. When you worked across market, right, from Barclays to, when you see the maturity and regulation now, how do you see it from perspective of one, digital banking kind of applications and payment applications? Because as you know, next year, central bank has an aggressive plan to bring instant payments and so on and so forth. So is regulator really ready and pushing, or they really indifferent about what banks or payment providers do?
So before I answer that question, I think since you touched payments and I was sitting there listening to your chairman's question about payments and thin margins, and I was waiting to come on this podium to talk about and share my views, right? So can I?
Sure, sure.
Yeah. So I think I see a huge amount of opportunity. While you talked about there are thin margins on payments, but here in this country, the dimensions which we all see are slightly different, right? It's a remittance market, close to 20 billion, which goes out of this country every year, 20 billion, close to, in fact, more than that. But the other smart areas which banking industry is working on, and some of the banks, including us, have devised certain very, very interesting models around payments, are one area within the corporate world is invoice discounting, right? So we create a marketplace for invoice discounting for our trade ecosystem partners. So huge opportunity in that area. Remittances, another area where a lot of interesting innovative work is happening for the banks. And then other very, very interesting products which banks offer here, which actually really, really fit very well with the dynamics of this region, which is all expat market, right? And here, it's all about you want salary in advance, come in and we will create some fee income structure around you. But huge, huge opportunities which we see here, and banks are really real benefits from the payment industry. The other thing which banking industry is doing is now payment as a LOB within the banking industry is now maturing also. Before that was not the case. Now coming back to your point on the
regulatory.
Yeah, the regulatory affairs. Now, from the days when the regulators used to say absolutely no to cloud, the security aspects coming into play. In fact, banking industry itself talking about against cloud, that no, it's our customer data and we can't take that in cloud, to where we are today. Even regulators are hosting their own solutions in cloud, right? So it has taken a full circle maturity, I would say, life cycle around this topic. And the real good thing about regulators, especially UAE, is they are extremely supportive now of the outsourcing and cloud computing affairs, as long as banking industry understands the risks aspect and can demonstrate to regulators that how we will manage the risks and how we will protect the customer data. So that aspect is really good and favoring us, because we also thoroughly, by the way, banks thoroughly enjoy having this strong protection around us, which is regulators. Otherwise, Apples and Microsofts and all will just eat us like anything, right? So we have a blessing as regulators around us. Payment industry, you spoke about payment industry. If you look at just UAE, I think 4 to 5 million payment transactions every day, which are going through the network of payment industry within the UAE. In fact, much more than this, every day. Now this graph, when you see over the last 3-4 years, is just growing. If someone has to match with the speed and agility and the volume, there is no way banking industry can continue to grow their data centers horizontally. No way. they have to go into cloud. They have to bring that scale through this help of cloud. And you have examples. Now, every other pocket has contactless card. And if we have contactless card and the solution behind that is in cloud, the flexibility which it gives, the agility which it gives to the industry is huge. So that's another very interesting dimension which we are seeing and observing as banks, how cloud is maturing. On digital front as well, I think we are now, partners are actually helping us also. What partners are doing very, very interestingly is they are saying, by the way, if you want that good feature, that's not with you on premise with license, you have to come to cloud to us, right? And that's available there in cloud. So they are helping us as an industry to now move and shift into the cloud. We have to take care of a few other aspects when we talk about how do we approach cloud, what our strategy should be, but happy to talk about that as well.
Very interesting. Ammara, when Noman spoke about the risk, right? Banks are the most risk-averse organizations, and you coming from a service industry do recognize that anything new will have its unknowns and challenges while moving first time. So when banks are moving their core banking apps or digital banking apps, which you and your principal Temenos provides on the cloud, what kind of challenges should banks be ready for? And how do you prepare the senior management of the banks for mitigating those risks and communicating those risks?
Yeah, I think a very interesting question. If I look at it from the perspective of what we are doing obviously digital transformations, and that's where the core comes in, or any change on the digital banking. One of the use cases of the cloud is really to do digital business transformation. And that is what we actually talk to the banks about, that cloud is not just for lift and shift, because if you're just doing a lift and shift, the only thing that you are going to save is maybe some cost, right? Or maybe some operational efficiency. But finding use cases for digital business transformation is where you are going to make the best use of a cloud. Because when you are, for instance, I'll give you an example, when businesses are taking their onboarding or origination onto the cloud, they need to rethink of what that process will look like when it is being hosted on the cloud. And that's how we are kind of, as an SI, what we are saying is that find the value of what you can do on the cloud and not just look at it from a lift and shift model, because that will not get you the value.
Very interesting. So Noman, that comes back to the question, how do you select a right cloud supplier? All the big names are around, some niche players are around. And one, what do you select? And then what do you host? Because you have a host of apps in a bank. So as a CIO, how do you make those key decisions?
So first of all, I'm not going to bore you guys with saying, take care of security and take care of this. And that is a given, right? So I think important thing from this side as bankers, what is extremely important is don't put the cart before the horse. And what I mean by that is make sure, going back to Ammara's point, business first. Business understands that cloud is not a technology initiative or hobby. Cloud is for business continuity. Cloud is for business innovation. Cloud is for business agility. So first, when I say don't put cart before the horse, bring that maturity and understanding within the business function, number one. Number two is understand the governance model around cloud and make sure your organization has full grip of the governance. And governance means, when I talk to my industry peers, we come and joke around very basic examples that when a cloud invoice comes in the organization, people don't even understand how to read this cloud invoice, right? And somebody's saying compute power got used this much and this is the dollar charge. How do you reconcile that? So that level of maturity, organizations first have to have before they go and look at suppliers' capabilities. So that's on the internal side. But when you look at the suppliers, definitely we have to look at the skill set which is available within supplier domain, number one. Number two, especially within the UAE industry, just make sure the way your data is hosted, the way resiliency is built around your data, the way local standards, whether these are central bank-driven standards, whether these are NISA-driven standards, the supplier has all the good controls in play. And last thing I would say from my side is try, this is my message to my banking colleagues, bankers, try to deal directly with principals as opposed to middlemen when it comes to cloud journey, right? And that helps you a lot with respect to what leverage you will have on principals and what level of value they can bring on the table. So these are the few things we need to take care of. The security, the encryption of data, and all that stuff is a given. I think that aspect is a given.
And I think just from learning perspective, what we have also learned through this journey is that many of the neobanks or digital banks who have come to us saying that we want the cloud to take care of everything, we don't want our own facilities for anything, have found out that actually it is not that easy. And you may have cloud for certain things, but not everything can be put on the cloud right now. So that kind of maturity is still in the works. And what is being done is, of course, people are talking about multi-cloud environments and then having on-prem as well as cloud environments, etc. But those complexities will add the risks, like you were asking me, what are some of the risks? These are some of the risks which do get added when such complexities come, because all of the service providers are also learning as they are maturing in their maturity curve, that there are certain services which they have to add, there are certain flexibilities which they have to add as part of what they are providing.
So just one last question from me. When you look at the cloud, and there are huge benefits, there's benefits around cost, there's benefits around time to market in terms of today's semiconductor industry not really having deliveries, scalabilities, microservices we spoke about earlier. So if you have to pick just one for the bank and an industry, what would that be, Noman, and then Ammara?
So I think two. I'll take two, if you allow me to take two benefits. One is the agility, and you being a bit insider to what's happening within DIB, this core banking program you talked about, the agility has truly come because of the cloud computing services coming our way, right? So the way we as technology can respond to business need, if we have the right cloud infrastructure, whether it's on-premise or whether it's public, whatever the case be, agility is the key, number one. And number two is the business continuity. So if we design our cloud strategies very, very carefully, then as an industry, we can thoroughly enjoy the business continuity as well. These are the two benefits. Cost, I don't see cost as a driver, or it doesn't deliver cost saves that notably significantly. However, the other benefits really take care of whatever the cost, incremental cost, which organizations end up facing with cloud. But these are the two, agility and the business continuity.
Ammara, if you have to pick one.
Yeah, so I would say that it gives more time for innovation because the cloud is like a rail, which is a utility service which every bank needs. And when that is taken away by a service provider, then it gives more time for the bank to actually innovate. And of course, they also address their scalability. So if I were to choose, two things, then one would be that it gives more time for innovation, and the other is scalability.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And just any questions from the panelists? I think there are lots of hands.
Oh, is it?
Just last couple of questions I'll take. Yeah, go ahead.
Rizwan Saab.
So I think my question is in continuation of what Ammara said. Not everything can be hosted on the cloud. But if a day comes when a bank has to choose that, yes, I can port everything on the cloud, would the bank go for it? Like, you know?
If bank has to choose?
All the applications on the cloud. Today we are very selective. We look at the core systems or some of the systems on the cloud. But on an average, a bank would have at least 200 to 300 applications. And if tomorrow that is available, would the bank go for all the applications on the cloud?
Well, again, so when we talk cloud, the old days jokes, cloud, some people used to say cloud, data will go in cloud. What happens if rain happens? Will the data fall? Right. So when we say cloud, cloud obviously also means cloud on premise. So for banks, extremely carefully they have to take decisions depending upon which technology topic we are talking about. So example, if there is analytical data which requires speed, you would like to be extremely careful as a banker that where do you want to host it? Private, public, if it's public, edge computing coming into play. So that's on data side. If you're looking at your enterprise buses, your APIs, this is speed, right? So again, be carefully deciding on what cloud strategy you take. So honestly, Rizwan, it's all about which topic of technology within the banking technology domain, and then how you deploy in cloud, and which type of cloud you're talking about. So cloud, virtualization, containerization, these all go hand in hand because they deliver agility. But you as a banker will decide that, you know what, you want this middleware in cloud but on premise because I need speed. So it really depends upon bank strategy, and all one size will not fit all, but definitely cloud is the way to go. On-premise, public, private, hybrid, whatever the case be.
I think that's it. I think we'll just give back to the Masood. Thank you so much, Noman and Ammara, for sharing your insights.